Hunter recruitment and retention is arguably one of the hottest topics affecting the future of deer hunting. What I wanted to find out is what can we do to retain the hunters that we already have, to get new hunters involved. And then of course, the question of access came up. What can we do to help get better access to quality hunting land?
Well, I think it really boils down to three important issues here, and that's interest in hunting, opportunity, and access, a place to go. And I think the entire hunting community has done a much better job in the first two issues over the last couple of years, last several years. Interest, certainly we're seeing interest in hunting at probably an all-time high. We're seeing things like Hunger Games and Duck Dynasty and some sort of popular culture things that are really increasing interest in hunting.
I'm not so sure we have a problem with the total number of deer hunters right now. That it may be a sufficient number, but number one, we need to maintain it. Number two, we need to diminish what I would call basically the opposition to it, and that can come from many non-user groups.
Although I support these programs that bring kids from the cities and get them out on a deer hunt, I'm worried about that because you're asking a kid, especially one that didn't grow up like we grew up, to go out there and kill a large animal.
Obviously, the best thing is to teach a young person to love the outdoors and to understand it.
So that means not a once and done activity. Don't start off giving them a fishing rod or a box of shells, whatever, and have a big Saturday and all the volunteers show up and then we're done. It's more you or I picking someone we want to pour in their life for 2 or 3 years and build a long-term relationship based around this activity. That way it's fun. You know, oftentimes a guy will take someone deer hunting, sit down, shut up and don't move for 3 hours, Johnny. That's not fun. No one does that. You know, no other activity would do that.
There's all kinds of opportunities to influence young people.
They always think about big game management areas, but small game management areas, even if you have to stock pheasants in them, it doesn't matter. And get kids into the shooting sports so they can start out in the shooting sports, go to small game, and eventually make that transition.
If you take a look at the majority of hunters today who have stayed hunting, you know, almost all of us started on small game. You know, and you worked your way up to deer. Basically, you learn how to be a woodsman. And that is what ties you to it and makes you want to come back.
It's troubled me for years that you see very few black hunters, you see very few Hispanic hunters. They want to hunt. And the ones that do are almost invisible. And so we need to get them more involved. And of course, there's a very positive thing now going on, and that is what I call the pink nature of deer hunting. You know, we're seeing a lot of women on the Sportsman Channel.
You know, the whitetail, it crosses all barriers. You go hunting with a blue collar, with a lawyer, with a doctor. There's people from all walks of life that are passionate about spending that time outside, detoxing, getting away from all the hustle and bustle of life that we've done to ourselves in this modern time.
The anti-hunter, frankly, is a fairly small percentage of the population. I'm not so sure there are that many rabid anti-hunters out there. There are many people who have just not been exposed to hunting in any sort of a positive light, but we have a lot of people who also interact with deer, whether they're crossing the roads, whether they're eating in their garden or their ornamentals. There are a lot of people who are at least familiar with whitetail deer. And so we need to get those people to understand that management, including hunting, is a big part of keeping the ecosystem healthy.
I think when it comes to interest and opportunity, we've done a good job, a much better job. When it comes to access, a place for these young folks to go, I think we've got some great challenges ahead. And I think really that's where the next focus must be, is providing places for these young folks who have interest and some opportunity to go hunting.
The biggest challenge, of course, is the access, and I don't see a simple solution to that. I mean, there's ways that people who don't have a direct relationship with either somebody who owns land or leases land, there's ways for them to increase their odds of finding a good place to hunt, but you know, we're not going to go back to the way it was 20 years ago.
It's a whole big effort to go to some place to hunt.
It's not going to be, you can't just knock on the door and say, hey, can I go hunting?
Right.
It's not going to work. So that's why I just think that, you know, it's the most challenging part, because it's hard for the casual hunter to fall into that category. Right. So they're the ones that are getting kind of removed from the hunting population. People who are serious, they can find a way, but the casual hunter, you know, I think they're slowly starting to disappear.
The problem is we're just not that much the country is rural anymore, and far less than when I grew up. And so, to me, it's going to take a little bit of a lot of it. There's no one magic bullet for this.